Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chats and Graps of Maps and Graps. I am so excited to be closing out Black History Month with an interview that I've been excited to do for a really long time. As always, I'm your host, Lyric Swinton, and today I have a very special guest, Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, straight from the New Japan Dojo. How are you today?
Better late than never. I always say, don't die with a story, tell it. And thank you for having me, Lyric. I do more than just wrestle. I do interviews, I give back to the wrestling community, and that's what it's all about, sharing my story. And hopefully, someone that listens to our interview gets inspired to either get into the business or becomes a bigger fan of mine.
Yes, and so I think that that's a perfect segue into my first question. Some of the things that you do outside of the business. And so you've been one of the primary coaches of the New Japan Academy program. Obviously, you're in the LA dojo as we speak. And there's been a lot of success, I would say, since New Japan Academy launched. Somebody who's really been a standout talent, Trisha Dora, Viva Van, a lot of different people who are coming up through this system. And so, talk a little bit about what you all are doing in New Japan Academy and your vision for the future of the project.
Well, I'm a big fan of Denzel Washington, and one of his famous sayings is, "You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. You can't take it with you, but you can leave it better than what it was when you left." And, I have a plethora of knowledge, I have a plethora of experience in this wrestling business. 21 years I've been rocking and rolling. So I want to be able to pass along my knowledge, pass along my experience. You can't have a testimony without a test. And here at the NJPW Academy Dojo, I give my students everything. I show them how to do the New Japan style. I also prepare them for WWE television. I want them to be prepared. If there's one thing that my students and I have in common is that we spent our hard-earned money to join an establishment to really gain as much knowledge as we can to be a superstar in this business. So with my students, I try to be as transparent and as authentic as possible. No one gets left behind when they train under Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser. Again, who am I to judge? I've been judged for the last 40 plus years of my life, So when my students come to the NJPW Academy, I try to give them the tools and resources that they need to succeed. I don't try to mess with them, mentally, because there will be coaches along their journey that will try to mess with them mentally and physically. But for me, I just give them the tools and the resources that they need to succeed, not just in professional wrestling, but life in general. One thing I like to check on with my students here at NJPW Academy is their mental health. Either before class or after class, I say, "How's everyone's mental health?" And if they don't have anyone at home to support them and give them the advice that they need, I say, be a part of my family on social media, reach out to me personally, and we can get to the bottom of any problems that we're dealing with. We're all in this together. And I say it all the time, the biggest education for me is what very little I know. So not only am I learning from the students, but they're learning from me. And you mentioned Trisha Dora. One thing about Trisha Dora is that the training here at NJPW Academy is very hard, very hard. But no matter what, Trisha Dora always had that positive outlook on the training, a positive mental outlook on life in general. And plus, she served for our country, so she's mentally, physically, and mentally tough. So it was a joy to have her in class and to see her doing her thing with Ring of Honor. My happiness is her happiness.
Yeah, and so in addition to Trish, we've seen, I think, and over the past few years, dojo has become like the place to train people like Kevin Knight, even as recently as Mercedes Monet. What do you think makes New Japan special? Why is, and even as it relates to your career as a singles wrestler, that was the place that you really reinvented yourself. Why New Japan? What do you think makes New Japan so special and the place for wrestlers who want to be seen as the best wrestlers in the world? They feel like they have to be involved in some capacity.
That's a great question, and I can only speak from experience. Uh, I've I've loved my experiences with WWE, but with New Japan, it's a little bit different because with WWE, I did my thing as a group with the Nexus years ago. I did my thing as a primetime player with Titus O'Neil. I did my thing with Mr. Bob Backlund as a singles wrestler with WWE. But one thing that's special about New Japan is that they were the first to put me on the marquee of 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 big events before WWE did. So New Japan Pro Wrestling holds a special place in my heart. Me being an African American coach, the first openly gay WWE superstar. Um, I, I'm able to give back to the wrestling community, and New Japan has allowed me to do that. They don't judge me. They um, they put me on the marquee. They've made me head coach of New Japan Academy, and I couldn't ask for any better wrestling organization to work for. So they support me. I support them, and I always said none of us are as strong as all of us. So the more representation, the better. The more representation with myself, Kevin Knight, my girl Mercedes, Trisha Dora, plethora of other superstars that have came through New Japan. Don't forget about none other than uh, Jay Lethal has, I'm sure, been through New Japan. I can go on and on. Scorpio Sky, who I was just thinking of, has been through the system. So representation is key.
And I think that's a great segue. Representation. Like, I remember being a kid when you were a WWE superstar and coming out as openly gay and you being black. And I think like that was so profound at the time. But to fast forward to now, it's we see so much more of that intersectionality across the industry. Can you talk a little bit about how we've progressed and to see more faces being black, being queer, and the role that you played and really kind of pioneering that openly in the industry?
I say it all the time. I'm not the first and I'm not the last, but we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to representation. And again, I can only speak from experience. And every day my feet touch the ground when I wake up in the morning, I know someone in the LGBTQ community, the African American community, or anyone that gets bullied into silence is counting on me. That's why social media is such a powerful tool. You hear some people say, "Oh, I need a break from social media. I need a break from social media." That's understandable. It can be quite stressful, but I always use my social media to impact and lift others. My social media is an open diary to the world. I look at it as me inspiring others to be and accept themselves. So I have a responsibility with my social media to elevate people, to impact the masses. Lyric. There's 7 billion plus people on this planet. So I've got a lot of work. We've got a lot of work. You and I, Lyric, have a lot of work to do, spreading our word about positivity and representation.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've been a personal, I would say, a personal inspiration of mine of just being able to pioneer in this space of, being black, being in a place like New Japan, being able to be yourself and show up so authentically. But to switch gears a little bit, I want to talk about you as a wrestler because I think that the New Japan part of your career has been so profound for people who have been watching and maybe some people who might be unfamiliar with it. Like, you have been one of those really strong faces of the New Japan Strong brand, and your rivalry with, Tom Lawler has really been one of those linchpins of the New Japan Strong brand. And we've gotten to see it in many forms. We've even gotten to see you guys team up recently. So, as it relates to New Japan Strong, right now you're in your 40s. What are those goals that you have left as a wrestler? Obviously, you're doing some great things, as a coach, but as a wrestler in New Japan, what are some things that you would like to do that you haven't, accomplished already?
Yeah, 40 years old, and again, I'm doing some of my best work with New Japan Strong. I feel good. I look good. I definitely, not to toot my own horn, but I definitely don't look 40. Um, but I say health is wealth. So for me, being able to still be in the game, I'm always taking care of my body. I'm always doing yoga. I'm always doing mobility training because there's a saying: if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. So, as you know, it's very important, especially nowadays. My approach to the game has slowed down a little bit, but it's slowed down for the better. Um, Again, I can't. Each match I go into with New Japan, I go into it like it's like my last match, but each match is very, very special for me. You're only as good as your last match. So for me, quality over quantity. When I first started wrestling, I was wrestling every weekend. When I was with WWE, almost 10 years, I was wrestling every week, 6 days a week. So now I'm on a limited schedule now. So it's more important that I take care of my body more than anything else. So that for me, that's the key to longevity. Taking care of your body.
Absolutely. And so there's a few things that you haven't done yet. Or do you think that there's any possibilities of you possibly doing a G1 at some point, or participating in some of the events over, in Japan? Obviously, last year there were those great Independence Day shows over
Uh,
in Corkin for the New Japan Strong brand. So, are there any, like, side quests that you're looking to possibly go on?
Larry, just because moves aren't being announced doesn't mean moves aren't being made. But
Okay.
for me, last July, unfortunately, was a tough year, a tough month for me because I lost my grandfather, who was 98 years old, and I had to be with my family. It was really, really rough for me because I lost my best friend. He's the only grandparent that has seen me wrestle live with WWE, with New Japan, in front of. He's seen me wrestle in front of 20 people. He's seen me wrestle in front of 20,000 people. He also saw me win my first ever major singles championship in Philadelphia when I tapped out Tom Lawler in Philadelphia. He was there for that. And yeah, last year was a rough time, rough season for me. But he's still in my heart. I still carry a lot of his stuff that he would always wear. His veteran hat. I still have attached to my book bag that I travel with all over the world. So this year, I'm definitely looking to make my trip out to Japan. Who knows when? But just just keep an eye on for Mr. No Days Off when he makes his way out to Japan and roughs some people up.
Yes, and I think I'm excited, to see that as well. And so we've been talking about the influences that you've had on your career and the influence that you've been on other people's career. And so, one thing that I've been asking throughout this Black History Month series to all of my guests is, what does Black history in wrestling mean to you? Because I think that you are Black history in wrestling, but I would love to hear what you think.
Black history to me means so much to me in wrestling and in life. For me, I don't celebrate it 1 month. It's every day for me. every day for me is a coming out experience. Every day someone sees me in the airport or in the gym and they ask me, "Oh, what do you do? Oh, you're a wrestler? Yeah, I wrestle. Oh, wow. Do you do amateur wrestling? Oh, no, I did amateur wrestling when I was younger. Oh, so what kind of wrestling do you do? WWE type of wrestling. That's what people can kind of relate to when I tell them what I do. And, they immediately, probably Google me and they see that I was, first openly gay WWE superstar, but most importantly, I'm African American too. So it's that minute where they realize, what a courageous move, or they say, or they or they frown upon my way of life, So again, every day is a coming out experience, but every day, little by little, I'm doing my part by being the best representation possible, not only for the LGBTQ community, but the African American, most importantly, uh, making sure that I'm a good representation for them too. So again, my fight is much more bigger than in the ring. It's outside of the ring, fighting bigotry and hatred and trying to be the voice of the voiceless when it comes to anyone that gets bullied into silence. So I can only do my part. I can't control other people's actions. I can only control my actions.
And I think that that's such a strong way to live. And so you talked about your WWE experience and then, going to New Japan. And so from a character perspective, Darren Young and Fred Rosser are quite different. So when you were really kind of, I guess, reinventing yourself and and thinking about who Mr. No Days Off was going to be, what was that process like of making that transition into, basically into this completely, different character and, but, being more true to like, yourself. What was that like?
Yeah, when I joined WWE, May 4th, 2009, when I got signed out of 75 guys and girls from all over the world, I earned my contract with WWE that day. The same day I earned my contract with WWE was the same day that AJ Lee had got signed. And I worked closely with Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty had gave me the name Darren Young. And then after a while, I used to call myself D Young because D Young sounds more hip than Darren Young. So I would always call myself D Young. And when I got signed, at the time I was called Frederick of Hollywood. So I had a fur coat, I had spiky hair, very flamboyant, very entertainment based. And then that's what got me initially on NXT, the original NXT back in 2010, and then the rest was history for me. But with New Japan, me trying to, not really trying, but just reinventing myself, most importantly, being myself, Mr. No Days Off Fred Ross, or using my government name, I kind of zoned into like uh, the more grittier type of wrestling. I'm a big fan of Stan Hansen. I'm a big fan of Yuji Nagata, a plethora of other superstars I'm a big fan of, but I kind of honed into a more grittier, nastier style. I can go on and on. In a coaching setting, I kind of give away a lot of my secrets and my tricks as to what makes me me in the ring. So I can only just touch upon on this interview as to the little tricks and stuff like that that I like to do. But yeah, that's the way it is.
I definitely understand being a big Stan Hansen fan. He's one of my absolute favorites. Uh, you said earlier that you work a little bit more of a limited schedule now as it relates to wrestling, and so do you have any interest outside of wrestling that you're exploring, that you're working on, that you're interested in? Doesn't have to be anything like that you're doing like for work, but anything interesting interests you outside of wrestling.
Yeah, I've been out in Los Angeles, living out here since 2017, and I'm originally from New Jersey. So, um, from New Jersey, when I got signed to WWE, I moved to Florida, and then I was in Florida from 2009 to 2017, and then I moved out to LA, trying to get into commercials and doing auditions and stuff like that. Just like I said earlier, just because moves aren't being announced doesn't mean moves aren't being made. So I'm constantly behind the scenes, grinding, working away, doing auditions, doing tryouts here and there. Um, so all I can do is just keep plugging away.
That sounds so cool. And I would like to say, before I ask my last question, thank you for all of that you do. And you are a person, when I talk to talent from New Japan, I talk to Black talent, and just Black wrestling fans. You're a person that always comes up as an unsung hero of like a lot of the contributions that you've made. And so I'm super thankful for the work that you've done and that you continue to do in New Japan Academy. I think it's going to be an absolute fantastic year. But for my final question, something that I've been asking everybody during this Black History Month series is, who is somebody who you think is an unsung hero, a Black wrestler that you think hasn't been getting a lot of shine, or is just might be just, one step away from that big opportunity? Who's that one, or maybe it's multiple people that you think, some people should take the time to go, Google them or check them out or give them a look?
That's a great question. I could name a few. Jonathan Gresham, Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight is just getting started, and I'm very happy for his success and his journey so far. Um, Kevin Knight's someone to definitely big fan of. He's someone that would always sit under my learning tree when he didn't have to, but he still wanted to kind of learn, and he always appreciated all the stuff that I had done with Titus O'Neil way back in the day. So I'm looking for Kevin Knight to be someone that really makes a name for himself and represents like no other.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Thank you so much for lending your time, just a little bit of your secrets, because I know you have many, of how you became Mr. No Days Off. But thank you for all the work that you continue to do in New Japan Academy. I'm super excited to have had you here today. Is there anything that you want to mention before we sign off, or anything you want to plug?
Uh, Thank you for letting me share my story. I love doing interviews. When I first came out, uh, as the first openly gay WWE superstar with WWE in 2013, I wasn't good at doing interviews. But when I came out, WWE really helped me out when it came to interviews, become a better storyteller, and all that stuff. So I enjoyed doing these interviews. And for me, last but not least, follow me on my social media, Twitter X and Instagram at Real Fred Rosser. And most importantly, hashtag block the hate. Equality sign. This is my equality sign for all. And don't you forget about it, Lyric.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lyric Wrestling, and you can subscribe on YouTube at Lyric Swinton. And you'll be able to find all of this on YouTube as well as all podcasting platforms. Thank you for supporting all of my Black History Month interviews. By the time that this comes out, you will have seen Athena on here, you will have seen Kevin Knight, you will have seen Maya World, and you will have seen now Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, as well as the Fightful article that dropped about 5 wrestlers, Black wrestlers in particular, that I think that everybody should keep an eye on this year. And guess what? Kevin Knight and Trish Adora are named on there. So make sure that you give it a read. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk next time. Bye.